Chapter 29. The Goddess, Part 2. The clouds were gone. The sun shone down on the wasteland, finally free to spread its light for the first time in 200 years. A chance for life to grow anew, a chance to rebuild and prosper. A chance squandered. The wasteland burned, as did the Pegasi cities that once stood atop those clouds. And through the fire and ash stood legions upon legions of tall, imposing figures who all sang in one distorted and heavily demented tone, a unity of a single voice to impose its will. Alicorns and changeling queens spread to every corner of Equestria. 10 Pony Tower, New Appaloosa. It had all burnt. The end had come with no warning. Ponies that were known and even respected had just been consumed by green flames and replaced with the Unity-controlled changeling queens in one united movement. Chaos and confusion erupted in every settlement as the changelings destroyed them from within, before the Alicorns came to destroy them from without. It took a day. One day. And during that time, almost all non-ponies had been purged, and all Equestrians carted off for induction into Unity. Even Red Eye hadn't escaped the carnage. The goddess, seeing no more use in him, had turned on the slaver lord and usurped his empire. Now only those of Unity inhabited the Equestrian wasteland. And soon enough, they would spread. Individuality was dead, as was all imagination and creation. A world for alicorns and changelings alone. A sandbox for one intelligence to do as she pleased. The world burned all over again. And this time, there was no chance for redemption. I gave a gasp, and I was ejected from the image of the burned Equestria. The Equestria that would exist if Kronos was allowed to succeed. That had almost existed when we'd nearly failed right then and there. My head pounded, and my vision started to return, but I was alive. Everything I had seen, it hadn't been... my head. Forget the nightmare. What was happening now? Everything had been a bit of a blur after Ultrix had come to my aid. But when I regained my faculties, I'd somehow ended up propped against a wall, feeling like I'd been hit by a sky carriage. And I just happened. My whole body hurt like hell, specifically in my chest area, but I was alive. I studied the room. Ice Blossom had an ice pack pressed against her head that I have no idea where she got that from. Did Ultrix just have that in her bag? How the heck didn't it melt? That's beside the point. Cobalt was also up and about, tapping away at the large security station at the end of the room. A whole bunch of red bars were coming from behind the security door, but the current lack of gunfire was a good sign. And then there was Ultrix, sitting quietly by herself in the corner, looking more miserable than I had ever seen her. What did I miss? I asked sluggishly. She brightened, ever so slightly, when she saw me.
You're awake! Well, you were only unconscious for a few minutes, but Your wounds were quite bad.
What did you do to me?
I managed to get the bullets out and provide healing potions to seal the wounds. Go easy, though. If we were somewhere safe, I would have liked to do a more in-depth procedure. Maybe give you some blood to replace what you lost, but...
Right. Not a good time. I croaked out, wobbling a little when I got up to my hooves. Yeah, I could feel the loss of all that lovely red stuff. Ugh. Everyone else? Fucking headache, Moonblossom complained. Stab wound, Cobalt said from his position at the console. The rounds from the minigun didn't penetrate my armor, though. It'll probably bruise underneath, but you got it the worst.
4 bullets breached your barding.
Altrix supplemented.
A 5th grazed your neck. The rest didn't penetrate, luckily. But just a few centimeters over, and...
I would either be dead or undergoing surgery in a really bad location, I finished for her, seeing her nod weakly before looking away in what I think was shame. Altrix. About the griffin.
I don't want to talk about it.
Altrix.
I don't want to talk about it!
She snapped with an uncharacteristic hiss, baring her fangs in an almost predatory manner that made me take an instinctive step backwards. Altrix kept the almost feral pose for a few moments more, before drooping again with a loud sniff. She lit her horn up and pressed something into me, but something that, when I took hold of it myself, I realized was my pistol.
Keep those things away from me. Please.
She whispered before returning to her corner and turning away from the rest of us. I guess I had to do as she asked. Dear Celestia, she was not taking the act of taking a life well. What's going on with the slavers? I asked Cobalt, changing the subject. Why aren't we up to our necks? I locked the door, he answered simply. They also suck at decryption. It will take them a while to gain entry. Okay, so we're trapped. Maybe. But I think there could be a way out for us. And how do you figure that? I've been looking through the security systems. It seems Bird Brain over there never cracked into the more intensive stuff, he explained. I'm seeing turret control, robot guardians, the lot, all untapped and offline. Turrets and robots? Oh, now we're talking. I'm working on getting them up and running, and there is some serious stuff here, he continued. Protect the ponies, sentry bots, a Mr. Gutsy or two. There are even a couple turrets inactive outside the door that'll clear the way for us, I think. Sounds good. How long? A few minutes, or a couple more. I'll get there. He replied, never once breaking from his work hacking into the factory systems. There are also a couple other bits here you might find interesting. Everything we could possibly need. Ah, for once, I liked the smirk on his face. I've got a couple of logs here, one text and one audio. Which do you want to hear first? I suppose I can take this moment to sit down. Still feeling a little lightheaded. Hit me with the text one first. Well, it's mostly a bunch of logistics and supply movement, but it did tell us where the supplies were headed. I'm liking this so far. The facility we're looking for, well, remember that door in Haven? What door? Oh, of course! Big metal door beneath a Donut Joe's with a fuck ton of griffins in it. Well, of course, that would be the MAS facility we want. I guess we should have figured that out earlier. I'll take the bulging eyes to be a yes, but anyway, that's the place we need. It doesn't really go into specifics, but there is one thing you should know. My hacking attempt the last time we were there triggered a silent alarm. If you want to get into that place without a repeat of last time, we will need an access code. An access code. Right, that might be a problem. Any idea where we can get one? Not at the moment, but I'll tell you if that changes. Okay. What about the other log, the audio one? No idea. I haven't listened to it yet. Cobalt stated, finally pausing in his work to extract a holotape and pass it over to me. He was about to say something else, but he stopped with a frown, as there was a beep on the console. Oh. Red blinking lights are never good, are they? Damn! Seems they got someone with a modicum of skill on the door. Now I have to keep searching and keep it closed. This may take a while. I'll leave you to it. He gave me a grateful nod and returned his attention to the console. Hopefully, he could keep them out a while longer. I wasn't sure I'd really last another fight after what just happened. Still, I slipped the holotape into my pip-buck and watched the audio log load up on my display. The moment it loaded in, I hit the play button and listened in as the voice of the Griffin Ultrix shot came out of the device. Seems the bugs have finally come out of their hole. Caught a trio snooping around the edges of town. They tried to get the fuck out of here when they were spotted, but the guys picked them off before they could go anywhere. Idiots. We're under orders to take any changelings alive. Kronos was pissed when he found out. Made an example of the guy who fired the first shot. The rest are lucky with the beating they got. There was a pause, the Griffin sighing a little before he continued. This is the shit I've got to deal with. Still, the boss had me arrange for the bodies to be taken up to Haven in the next supply shipment. Guess they'll want to do whatever tests those alicorns are into on the carcasses. I don't really care, just so they're out of here well before the smell of rot mixes with the smog. The log ended, and only the tapping of Cobalt working the console filled my ears. So now we know for sure what happened to Insidious's scouting party. I saw a bit of movement in the corner of my eye, and I turned to see that Ultrix was now looking towards me with a renewed look of horror on her face. I met her eyes with my own, but she only flinched and retreated back to her corner. I really wanted to say something to her, but what could I say? What's this? Cobalt muttered to himself, humming curiously. I don't know. I'm not psychic, Moonblossom called out to the unicorn, still holding her probably throbbing head. I wish I was. Imagine all the dirty thoughts I could spy on. Yes, what a shame. It's that Alicorn, he explained, and we all froze in one singular moment. I kind of forgot about her. Crap. I've spotted her on one of the cameras. Take a look. An image appeared on the giant security monitor, and sure enough, that was the Alicorn. The Alicorn was standing next to another Griffin Talon, but completely dwarfed him in size. She had a green coat and a darker green mane, her horn long and sharp, while her wings remained tightly furled up on her sides. She was taking slow, meaningful steps around the Griffin, as if circling prey. They were also standing in the middle of a catwalk intersection that led out in 4 separate directions. Equipment was set out around them almost like a command post or something, and the entire structure was hung above a factory floor that looked to be disused. Where's that? Moonblossom asked. Slap bang in the middle of the factory. I think it used to be the main production facility in this place, he noted. Looks like they're using it as the center of their operations here now, though. Command post. Called it. This thing have audio? I asked him, curious as to what the mutant was saying. Yeah, 1 second. There was an ear-splitting crackle of white noise, but then a little speaker system appeared in the right-hand corner of the screen as audio began to be channeled into the security room. All under control, the Griffin finished assuring the Alicorn. The goddess gets impatient from Kronos' lack of progress catching these outsiders, the green alicorn warned. These interlopers work for the changeling people. They cannot be allowed to interfere. If it's the same group attacking us now, then we'll put them in the ground, the griffin rebuked. And get your changeling, so you tell her that. We need not tell the goddess anything. The goddess knows all that we do. And you're creepy, motherfuckers. Did I ever tell you that? We care not for your opinion on our unity. We are wishing to see results, and Red Eye is seeing a great many disappointments of late. Relax. We have them all trapped in the security center. Once my slavers got the door open, they'll be gunned down in a second. Then we'll find that sniper who's been taking pot shots outside of town and put a bullet in them as well. And yet they have already damaged this factory's ability to manufacture weapons, the Alicorn coldly pointed out. If they disrupt Kronos' operations any further, we would be most displeased. We'll get it done, the griffin snapped. It's my neck on the line. If it's not one of your freaks, Kronos would snap my neck for fucking this up. So trust me, I know. Seems we're making that guy's life hell, Moonblossom interrupted, and I zoned out the end of their conversation to look towards the Pegasus. Big whoop, right? I guess I'll have to disappoint the goddess some more, I remarked. Cobalt, how goes those robots and stuff? Funny you should mention that, he said, peering down at the scrolling green text on his smaller terminal screen. Should be right now. There was another loud beep before I could just about hear the sound of whirring machinery that was quickly followed up by a lot of gunfire and suppressed shouts muffled by the metal door between us and the slavers. I've programmed everyone inside the security room as friendly targets and everything else as hostile, he announced victoriously. The old world is waking up, and these assholes are about to get one hell of a blast from the past. Despite my lack of blood, I couldn't stop a pained laugh. Nice work. We have what we came for. We should get out while they're scrambling. Wait, Moonblossom interrupted. Don't you see? We have a robot army on our side now. We can totally take this place out. She's not wrong. It had cut off Kronos from easily getting supplies to Haven, Cobalt supported, and I still need to find a lead on this access code. Huh. I mean, they're not without a point. It would be a huge blow to Red Eye and Kronos. They would also lose their supply of new weaponry and equipment this place makes.
We should do it,
Altrix said, surprising the hell out of me as she walked over and joined Cobalt and Moonblossom.
They're experimenting on us. We can't let them. It's just wrong. Just fucking wrong.
I resisted a grimace at the intensity of Altrix's anger. So far removed from the usually timid and kindly changeling I'd come to call a friend. But that doesn't mean she was wrong, not by any stretch of the imagination. Just please, Altrix, don't let the wasteland corrupt you too. Okay, the robots can do the heavy lifting, I decided. We need to take that command post and kill that alicorn if we can. We do that, the slavers here would probably crumble.
Well then what are we waiting for?
Moonblossom asked, walking over to the dead griffin in the room and all but ripping the battle saddle from his back.
Who calls dibs?
Oh, I think I could use a little payback. They helped load me up with the battle saddle, and holy crap was it heavy! Altrix more or less seemed to morph back into her usual self. That is, filled with maternal concern for my health, seeing as I lost a lot of blood just a short time before, And true, I was feeling that. But I could do this. Just one final stretch. I appreciated her concerns, but this was how it would be. So, I soon had the battle saddle loaded onto my back, using my magic to help keep it secured, and we opened the security doors. Carnage awaited outside. Bodies littered the hallway, slavers who had been surprised and gunned down in a moment by the defense turrets. Looking up, one of the said turrets had been taken out by a lucky hit while the other was still very much alive. It didn't even react to us. From here, I could hear a lot of gunfire and shouting coming through the factory. My EFS was mixed with so many bars that were both red and green. A huge battle raging through the building. Let's go. We left the security station behind, moving through the corridors and passing more corpses and the occasional scrapped robot. The signs were helpful in leading us in the direction of the factory floor. We just had to keep following them, and they would lead us right to the Alicorn. Goddesses guide us. We took a shortcut through an old break room, where two slavers were busy kicking the shit out of a now barely functioning Protectopony. A broken pool cue was lodged into the dome on its head, mangling the weapon inside as they pummeled the struggling bot with their hooves. I stayed back as Cobalt and Moonblossom moved in. The latter charged the first slaver with a burst from her wings and slammed him into the opposing wall with a surprised shout, while Cobalt placed a magic bolt into the head of the second and downed him before they knew what was happening. Moonblossom made quick work of the winded slaver she had hit, driving her knife into his neck and letting him fall. The Protectopony was static a moment before getting up to its metal hooves and looking around. Damage is critical. Returning to repair bay. It then plunked off, leaving the scene behind. You're welcome, Moonblossom shouted after it. Forget it. We need to keep moving, I said, taking a glance at the new arrow on my eyes forward sparkle. I guess we didn't even need the wall signs anymore. It's this way. We left through the second door and moved through yet another corridor. An intersection came up ahead of us, a turret hanging in the middle, firing down the corridor where we needed to be. Peering around the corner, I saw a griffin and 3 ponies taking pot shots through another doorway. They seemed to be in a storeroom full of more of those metal crates, if a little smaller than the ones in the loading dock. The griffin had a magical laser rifle in her claws, and gave a shout as she jumped into the hallway and unleashed a barrage of red beams. The turret above was hit, sparking a moment before detonating. I took that moment to turn the corner and rev up my minigun, and Griffin at the other end having her eyes bulge in surprise just before I lit up the hallway in a cascade of 5mm rounds. The bullets bit into her combat barding, but they didn't immediately make a dent. It didn't matter much, however, as the force made her stumble and place her unprotected head right into the incoming stream. Too many bullets ripped through the flesh, stripping it away in bloody chunks, one of her eyes and her beak coming away as the griffin became a corpse before even hitting the ground. One of the ponies who had been with her swore as he and the others lit up the corridor, and I took cover before any of them could hit me. Wait until they reload, I said to the others, and then, hostiles, firing. The deep robotic voice had come from behind the slavers, and I peeked back around to see them jump around in fear as a massive robot on 3 treads, with more armaments than any pony should really know what to do with, came rolling in. The sentry bot took some quick fire, but it only scratched the already decayed paint as it unleashed a barrage of rockets into the 3 of them. One of the ponies jumped away in time, though the other 2 were completely annihilated by the detonations. Still, the 3rd was crippled by a flail of shrapnel, before 2 falling before the robot's own minigun. Moonblossom whistled in appreciation. Okay. Cobalt, I admit it. You're the better hacker. I felt like Cobalt wanted to retort once again to her definition of hacking, but he simply chose to take the compliment with a nod. We continued into the storeroom, moving past the sentry bot as it continued back the way we'd come from. I almost felt sorry for the slavers caught in its path. But the robot had done one last thing for us, seeing as it had cleared all resistance between us and the Alicorn. We made our way up a flight of stairs and through a corridor even narrower than the last, before coming up on a closed metal door to our right. I opened it up, then led the way as we stepped out onto the catwalk over the factory floor. It was the same set of catwalks we had seen on the security camera. 4 walkways leading to one central platform, where the Alicorn was exactly where we had left her. Only now the green mutant pony had placed a magical shield around the entire center. The griffin we'd seen standing by her side, as he looked nervously around at the turrets around the room that were all pointed in their direction. He saw us first. "It's them! Damn you all! How did you—" Silence. The Alicorn shushed him in a moment, and I saw her impartial eyes turn to glare at us through the shield.
"We must admit, we are impressed by your performance. Scrap Heap and Cobalt, you and your skills would make excellent additions to our unity."
"No thanks. I prefer what I currently have between my legs," I shot back. "And really, those wings must be a pain to keep neat."
"Oh, you have no idea,"
Moonblossom supported.
"A pity. Perhaps we might yet incapacitate you and deliver your salvation by force. But your friends must be eliminated. All but the changeling. We have plans for you." "My people aren't yours to experiment on!"
Altric shouted at the Alicorn.
"We don't want your unity!" "You're a fool to believe so. But unity can cure your ignorance."
"What is your name?" Cobalt asked. And the Alicorn actually looked surprised. "What was your name, anyway?"
"We need not have a name. We are unity."
"Right. Because the goddess stripped everything out of you that made you a pony. Do you even say anything yourself anymore? Or is it all an echo of her voice?"
"The great and powerful goddess's voice is all there needs to be,"
the Alicorn suddenly bellowed.
"Try and instill doubts on our Alicorns all you want. It is a simple fix."
"Goddess, I presume?" So this was her. "What'd you do, strip away what we just said?"
"But of course. Unity has no room for petty doubts or individual opinion. We work for all pony kind."
"And eliminate everything pony in the process."
"You are foolish not to understand. Unity is the pinnacle of our evolution. The changelings will have the honor of sharing this pinnacle, despite what that fool Red Eye would have planned for them. They will join us in salvation, while the rest regretfully perish, along with the remnants of the old world."
"Wait. What?" the Griffin said as he suddenly balked. "You're meant to be in an alliance with us! You are not and never will be compatible with Unity. Only ponies and changelings have that privilege," Cobalt noted with a despising edge to his voice. And only even unicorns right now, isn't that right? I'm sure the rest of the pony race would follow if they have their way, and the changelings too. But griffins have no place in their utopia. But... The griffin stuttered, looking up to the Alicorn in horror. Red-Eye will know of this!
You believe he does not?
The goddess sneered.
Fool. This alliance is one of convenience. And you are no longer convenient.
The shield began to shrink rapidly, and the griffin barely had time to react to what was going on as the bubble passed him by and started to exclude him. He tried to bring up his weapon, but before he could, he was outside of the protective shell as every turret in the room zeroed in on him. A cascade of bullets slammed into the griffin, and his lifeless body was thrown from the catwalk to the ground below.
Brutal,
Moonblossom remarked. Why would Red-Eye or Kronos help you if they know you plan on stabbing them in the back? I asked the goddess.
We play our game of cat and mouse. Kronos fulfills Red-Eye's will, and he has his own intentions for the changeling queens we shall produce. But that hardly matters. He will fail.
What will Kronos do to the changelings that's different to the goddess? Really, the thought of what else could be done was even more terrifying. I don't think it's in any of our interest to let either side win here.
But our conflict of interest is no matter. Not to you. If there's one thing the goddess and Red-Eye can agree on, it's that ponies like you are a nuisance to be eliminated. We will not allow more of you.
More of who? Your drone seems a little stuck right now. I'm not sure what you're going to do.
Fool! Unity is beyond your tricks. No train cars this time!
What?
Deal with them!
There was an odd twitch of the Alicorn's head.
We cannot allow you to continue.
Her horn pulsed. In a moment, the world went upside down. It took me a few seconds and the slow motion of an instinctively activated sense to realize that we were falling. The faux Alicorn had released her shield in a giant wave of magic, all the turrets in the room shorting out from the blast, and the catwalks all crumbling from the impact. Releasing Sats led to my immediate impact on the ground, winding my already weakened body. My Pipmuck was screaming in all sorts of protest, but I wasn't down yet. Gathering myself and looking up, I could see the Alicorn hovering high in the air with her wings flapping. In a way, I felt sorry for her. Or him. Whoever the pony had once been. Stripped of everything. Every doubt and individual thought taken until only the goddess remained. Would she be free in death? Or would Unity suck her mind back in until a new body came along? Or would she be lost among the voices forever? Or at least so long as the goddess exists? I hope to Celestia it's the first option. For her sake. But one way or another, for our sakes, she had to die. I brought my minigun around and let the barrels spool before unleashing a torrent of bullets towards the Alicorn. So too did Cobalt unleash his magic, Moonblossom likewise taking to the air towards the Alicorn, as Ultrix thoughtfully injected me with a dose of Med-X before standing ready to administer future aid. Really, what chance did the goddess stand? The Alicorn brought up a shield to intercept our initial attacks, glaring down at us with that emotionless gaze. Moonblossom bounced off the shield harmlessly, but immediately went to work punching, kicking, and stabbing at it with everything she had. How strong was this shield? Strong enough to wait it out. And I had a sense of horror creep over me when the bullets stopped flowing, and the minigun's scorching barrels ran dry. The shield popped like a bubble, and the Alicorn swiftly rounded and bucked Moonblossom to the side. I could only watch as she swirled gracefully in the air to avoid Cobalt's magic bolts before coming in for an attack run. We all scattered away as a solid beam of green magic trailed across the ground, slagging all machinery and rubble in its way. I lost track of her after that, landing on the floor in a heap. My minigun was useless without ammo, so I cast off the battle saddle and went to collect myself. I pulled my assault rifle free and looked up to find the Alicorn. She was now engaged in something of a dogfight with Moonblossom, though it was more akin to the Pegasus blindly charging at the Alicorn, while the latter easily dodged each strike. I raised my rifle after one failed charge, put Moonblossom a good distance from the Alicorn, and I opened fire. But once again, the mutated pony simply avoided the incoming bullets before releasing a quickly cast wave of magic at Moonblossom. I paused in my fire as I saw my friends lose all control and crash back into an old table filled with rusted tools and other industrial equipment. It all went flying on the impact, Blossom upending the table and sprawling to the floor.
We are above your ability to kill,
the Alicorn calmly claimed, once again hovering high above us. I gave Cobalt a glance before his horn glowed and I once again raised my rifle at the Alicorn. Likewise, she let magic trail into her own horn to retaliate. Shield or attack? What would she do? A glob of green mucus hit the mutant's wing and fused it into a solid, inflexible mass. The Alicorn gave a shout, her shield going up even as she found herself unable to fly and dropped to the ground like a stone. She had been so focused on us, and actually we were so focused on her that no one had noticed when Ultrix had taken to the air and flown up behind the Alicorn for her strike.
Gah! We cannot fly?
Ultrix called down to the shielded Alicorn, now hovering where the large pony had been.
You go, girl!
Moonblossom cackled as she recovered from behind the overturned table, leaping over it and approaching the shield.
Now what? We do not need flight. Unity's superiority is undeniable.
The shield came down as a green aura wrapped around a bunch of equipment before it was all hurled toward us. Fortunately, the Alicorn was not the only one with shield spells. Cobalt erected one around the two of us, while Moonblossom scampered away from the debris with a few new cuts and bruises. I made another shot at the Alicorn just as a bolt of magic hit Cobalt in the chest. I didn't have time to panic as the blast made me stumble, a waft of smoke obscuring my vision as I blindly ran in any direction to avoid whatever the Alicorn would hurl at me next. A good decision, as after I'd ran across the room and jumped onto an old conveyor belt, I saw the remnant of a magical streak where I had just been standing. It was high time I entered Sats. This battle and everything slowed to a halt. The percentages around the Alicorn were worryingly low, but I lined up a few rounds for her chest and released the carnage. The Alicorn reacted fast, backpedaling away from the bullets before raising another shield to stop them. I saw her glance down, a dribble of blood seeping from a graze along her barrel. She looked back up at me with... was that fear? Or whatever it was only lasted a moment before the neutral look returned, the goddess undoubtedly dumping the fear of her potential death wherever she dumps all her thralls' emotions. But I'd seen it. Just a small glimpse of the pony buried beneath. I'm so sorry. I wasn't even sure she heard me. Or even if she did, if she'd reached the actual pony I was talking to. But I had to say it. Altrix came into a landing beside Cobalt, and I was relieved to see her help him up, though there was a huge burn in his combat armor. He huffed. All right, I see your point. I am keeping the armor.
How do we crack that egg?
Moon Blossom asked as she returned to us, referring to the shield still placed in around the Alicorn.
I can't do much if I can't reach the squishy bits. We cannot be defeated. You delay only your deaths in your rebellion,
the Alicorn announced through her shield.
You will...
Hostiles detected. Firing. Well then! Through one of the doors of the factory rolled the sentry bot from earlier. I think it was the same one. Who cares? Sentry bot! The robot took one look at the Alicorn before raising its missile launcher and firing a barrage of rockets. I backed away from the impending booms, Cobalt doing the same while Moonblossom and Altrix hopped back into the air and found a perch, each, to watch the show on. The rockets whooshed forth and hit the shield with everything they had. But, oh, come on! What will it take to lower that thing? Still, I saw her grit her teeth as the artillery hit her barrier. But the rocket barrage could only last so long before needing to reload, and it was at that moment the Alicorn struck. And at that moment, Moonblossom did just the same. I saw the Pegasus jump down towards the Alicorn as her shield collapsed, and the magic was instead channeled into a colossal beam of magic that was sent toward the sentry bot. It hit the robot dead on, melting through its chassis as the machine made a final, unintelligible statement before being destroyed. And Moonblossom hit the Alicorn's back, the mutant's good wing flexing out and smacking the Pegasus. She dropped the knife in her mouth, but the former raider wasn't to be deterred. It had all happened in a moment, it seemed, but Moonblossom had propped herself onto the large pony's head and bit down on her horn. I raised my rifle and fired. With her magic unable to fully form a shield due to the teeth clamping down on her horn, the Alicorn was helpless as a full mag was emptied into her barrel. Holes pocketed her green fur, red staining around each as the former unicorn dropped to the ground with a thump. Moonblossom was dislodged by the fall, rolling a couple meters from the Alicorn before rolling back onto her hooves. The Alicorn herself, though, didn't get up. And yet I still saw the subtle rising and falling of her chest as she breathed. We all gathered around the mortally wounded pony, stepping over rubble and twisted metal fragments. I kept my rifle pointed at her, Cobalt with his horn charged, and Moonblossom recovering her knife. There were no chances to be taken as far as the goddess was concerned. But no tricks were to be had. She didn't move, barely a muscle twitching as she laid there, yet her eyes twisted to look at us. I glanced at the others, and saw Altrix's eyes lose the burning intensity they had held previously. Now she looked torn, watching what had once been a normal pony suffer and die in pain.
Unity will...
The unicorn rasped, her eyes rolling into the back of her head. The red bar blinked out on my eyes forward sparkle.